in this video, we're going to talk about what a controlled experiment is. Okay. First off, there is a difference between a well-run controlled experiment and just kind of your basic minimum requirement. So the minimum requirement, so I'm going to write min here, is that you have a treatment group and you have a control group. Okay. So what we mean, of course, by treatment group and control group is that what you're interested in is seeing if something causes a certain response. So do we have a new drug, and we want to know if that new drug stops some sort of disease or symptoms of a disease? So what would happen is our treatment group is getting the drug, the control group is not getting the drug. Now, in drug trials, typically what happens is that this group gets the treatment, right? So I'm going to write gets the drug, and this group gets the placebo, so that they think that they're getting it, but really what it is it's a fake sugar pill kind of idea. Okay. Now, it doesn't have to be, though, a drug test. It could be something like maybe you're looking at how exercises affects your sleep. So the treatment group is getting exercise. So here's a different example. Now, there really isn't a placebo for exercise. So if this group's getting exercise, then this group is not getting exercise. Okay. Now, for me, just even reading exercise and no exercise, I'm thinking, man, I want to be in this group. Okay. Well, that's the other part, is that not only do you have a treatment group and a control group, the other kind of minimum requirement is that participants are randomly assigned. So you don't get to choose which group you're going into. You don't get to choose, hey, I'd like the drug, or hey, I'd like the placebo. Your name is randomly generated to be in one of the two groups. Okay, so that's the minimum requirements for a controlled experiment. The even better requirements, so that way you can actually show that your results are really good, is what's called a blind study. And even better is a double-blind study. A blind study means that you don't know which group you're in. And I should probably write participants. So participants don't know which group that they're in. A double-blind means that the researcher also doesn't know. Now, that's going to trip you up, because you're going to be like, well, then how do they gather data? Well, what this really means is that the person coming in contact, that is collecting the data and coming in contact with the participants, doesn't know which group they're in. So when they're handing them their drug or their placebo, they don't know which one that they're getting, so that way they're not tainting the data. Now, obviously, exercise versus no exercise, at least you would, if you were watching them exercise, you'd know who was in which group. But if what you're doing is just taking the information about, hey, how much sleep are you getting on average? If you're just taking that data on how much sleep they're getting per night on average, and you don't know whether they exercise or don't exercise, right, then that would be an example of double blind. Now, when you have double blind, what that means is that you basically have an outside agency overseeing it. Because somebody has to know how everything lines up. Okay. All right. So to have a really, really well done controlled experiment, you need to have a treatment group, a control group. You actually want to use a placebo, randomly assigned, and then, of course, this double blind. The very last thing is that you'd want to have a large group to sample. Because if you're only asking like 10 people to participate, then those 10 people may not be a good representation of all U.S. adults, right? Maybe you need 50, maybe you need 100, maybe you need 1,000. So the actual size we're going to end up talking about later on in the course, further on in the book. But just know right now you want to make sure you have a big enough group to account for variation. All right, so that's a controlled experiment.